In late 1780, the British forces, under the leadership of General Lord Charles Cornwallis, were pursuing a strategic plan known as the Southern Strategy. The British believed that they could win the war by focusing on the southern colonies, where they expected significant support from loyalists. Cornwallis's army, having already captured Charleston, South Carolina, and won major battles at Camden and Kings Mountain, hoped to roll through North Carolina and Virginia, re-establishing British control and quelling the revolution. However, this plan met fierce resistance. In North Carolina, Cornwallis faced General Nathaniel Greene, who had been recently appointed to command the Southern Continental Army. Greene understood the limited resources at his disposal, including militia forces with minimal training and meager supplies. He adopted a strategy of attrition, intending to exhaust Cornwallis's troops, rather than risk his smaller force in a single, decisive battle. Greene skillfully drew Cornwallis northward, engaging in a grueling series of retreats and skirmishes, with the most famous maneuver being the Race to the Don. In this race, Greene's troops successfully escaped across the Don River, denying the British a chance for a quick victory. Now, as March approached, Greene consolidated his forces at Guilford Courthouse, where he would attempt to strike a blow that could turn the tide of the Southern campaign. The location Greene selected for the Battle of Guilford Courthouse was carefully chosen to maximize the effectiveness of his defensive strategy. The site was situated near the small village of Guilford Courthouse in North Carolina's Piedmont region, offering advantageous terrain with both open fields and dense forest. The woods would provide his troops with cover, complicate British formations, and offer Greene the opportunity to position his forces in three well-coordinated defensive lines. Greene's plan was unconventional, but well thought out. His first line consisted of approximately 1,000 North Carolina militiamen, who, though largely untrained, could potentially hold the initial line long enough to weaken and frustrate the advancing British. The second line included 1,000 to 100 Virginians who were somewhat more seasoned and would provide a stronger defense, concealed in the woods. Finally, Greene positioned his most experienced and disciplined Continental regulars, around 1,400 strong, in the third line. These soldiers, trained and battle-hardened, would be prepared to counter any British breakthrough. Greene's objective was to bleed the British forces at every step, forcing Cornwallis to expend his strength line by line. The stage was set for a grinding battle that would test the endurance and resolve of both armies. The engagement began on the morning of March 15, 1781, as Cornwallis's British forces advanced toward the American positions. The first line of North Carolina militia opened fire with an initial volley, but, as expected by Greene, they quickly broke under the pressure of the disciplined British advance. Many of these militiamen were farmers and townsfolk, lacking the combat experience and training to hold firm under fire. They scattered, but not before causing some casualties among the British, forcing Cornwallis's troops to pause and reform before continuing their advance. When the British moved on to the second line of Virginia militia, they encountered fiercer resistance. These Virginians, positioned behind trees and natural cover, held their ground longer, taking advantage of the terrain and delivering repeated volleys. This caused more substantial losses among the British ranks and forced them to fight in close quarters, where the dense woodland hindered their ability to maneuver in cohesive formations. Despite this, the British steadily pushed forward, with Cornwallis's officers rallying their troops under heavy musket fire. Finally, the British reached Greene's third line of Continental regulars. Here, intense fighting erupted, with both sides trading volleys at close range. At a critical moment, Cornwallis ordered his artillery to fire grapeshot into the mass of soldiers, even though British troops were intermingled with the Americans. The grapeshot tore through both lines, causing heavy casualties, but managing to disrupt the American position just enough for the British to press forward. After nearly 2 hours of fierce fighting, Greene saw that his forces had inflicted serious losses on the British, but were at risk of being encircled. Deciding to preserve his army for future engagements, Greene ordered a strategic withdrawal, allowing Cornwallis to claim the battlefield, but at a tremendous cost. Although Cornwallis held the field at the end of the battle, his victory came at a staggering price. His forces suffered approximately 530 casualties, which constituted nearly a quarter of his army, while Greene's losses numbered around 270. Cornwallis's weakened and depleted force could not sustain its position in North Carolina and was unable to gather sufficient support from local loyalists as he had hoped. The battle remains a symbol of the courage, endurance, and ingenuity that characterized the American quest for freedom, capturing a moment when the tide began to turn decisively in favor of the American forces.